Vulnerability is one of those words that carries a weight of emotion, often negative emotion. We associate it with weakness, shame, and fear. For so many of us, being vulnerable feels like standing naked in front of a crowd, exposed and unprotected, waiting for the judgment to come. It's something we try to avoid at all costs, a state we fear because it makes us feel fragile and insecure. But what if we've been thinking about vulnerability all wrong? What if vulnerability is actually the key to true connection, growth, and personal power? At its core, vulnerability is not about weakness. It's about courage. It's the willingness to show up, to be seen, and to be imperfect. It's about accepting that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. In fact, that's more than okay, it's human. When we embrace vulnerability, we allow ourselves to be real, to show up authentically without the mask of perfectionism or control. And that right there is where the magic happens. When we embrace vulnerability, we are saying to ourselves and to the world, I am enough as I am, and I don't need to hide or protect myself in order to be worthy. It's a radical act of self-acceptance. It means allowing ourselves to be seen fully and completely. The parts of us we might usually keep hidden because they don't fit into the perfect image we try to project. The mistakes, the fears, the uncertainties, the imperfections, all of it. Vulnerability is the permission we give ourselves to show up as we are without the need to be flawless. This can be a deeply uncomfortable process, but that discomfort is where transformation lies. When we let go of the need to shield ourselves from judgment or rejection, we open ourselves to authentic connection. We allow others to see our humanity, and in return, we often find that they are more than willing to share theirs. Vulnerability creates an environment where real relationships can flourish, where empathy and understanding are born. But vulnerability doesn't just strengthen our connections with others, it strengthens our relationship with ourselves. It allows us to stop hiding behind the walls we've built, the stories we've told ourselves about who we are supposed to be. When we embrace vulnerability, we stop pretending to be someone we're not, and instead we start living from a place of true authenticity. It is through embracing our vulnerability that we can uncover our truest selves, the parts of us that are often hidden beneath the surface of our everyday personas. What's more, vulnerability is at the heart of creativity and innovation. Think about the moments in your life when you've had to step into the unknown, whether it was starting a new job, moving to a new city, or pursuing a dream you weren't sure you were ready for. Those moments were filled with uncertainty, yet they were also filled with potential. Vulnerability is where possibility begins. When we embrace the unknown, we give ourselves permission to fail, to learn, to grow. It's in those moments of uncertainty that we make the breakthroughs that define us. The courage to try something new, to take risks, to explore uncharted territory, all come from embracing vulnerability. The idea that we should always have everything figured out, that we should always be in control, is a myth. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of surprises. And it is precisely in these moments of vulnerability, when we let go of the need for certainty, that we can experience real growth. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we release the need for perfection and embrace the richness of being human. The vulnerability that once felt so terrifying becomes the pathway to our truest expression, our fullest potential. This doesn't mean we should throw ourselves into vulnerable situations recklessly. Vulnerability is not about putting ourselves in harm's way or seeking out unnecessary pain. It's about being honest with ourselves and others, about acknowledging that we don't have it all together and that it's okay. Vulnerability means being open to feedback, to criticism, and to growth. It means being willing to take the risk of showing up imperfectly, knowing that in doing so, we create the space for real connection, real learning, and real transformation. When we stop protecting ourselves from vulnerability, we stop hiding the parts of ourselves that are beautiful, unique, and full of potential. It's the parts of us that have the power to create meaningful relationships, to spark innovation, and to build lives that are authentic and full of purpose. Vulnerability doesn't make us weak, it makes us human. It makes us whole. In the end, embracing vulnerability is not about being fearless. It's about showing up in spite of fear. It's about taking the risk of being seen and allowing ourselves the freedom to be imperfect. It's about trusting ourselves enough to know that we are worthy of connection, love, and belonging just as we are. So today I invite you to embrace vulnerability, let go of the need for control, for perfection, for certainty. Show up as you are with all your flaws and uncertainties. Trust that in doing so, you will create the space for the real, authentic connections you've been searching for. And perhaps most importantly, you will begin to discover a deeper connection with yourself, the person you've been all along, beneath all the layers of fear and doubt. Failure is one of the most misunderstood concepts in our lives. For many, it carries with it a sense of finality, a stigma, a label that marks the end of an endeavor, a declaration of incompetence or inadequacy. From a young age, we are often taught to fear failure, to avoid it at all costs, and to only celebrate success. But what if failure isn't something to be avoided, but something to be embraced? What if failure is, in fact, one of the most important tools we have for growth, innovation, and success? When we begin to see failure for what it truly is, a necessary part of the journey toward achievement, we shift our perspective entirely. Failure is not a stop sign. It is not the end of the road. Instead, it is a stepping stone, a part of the process that ultimately guides us to where we need to go. We don't fail when things don't work out the way we expected. We fail when we give up, when we stop trying, when we refuse to learn from our mistakes. This is why we must learn to fail forward. Failing forward means using failure as an opportunity to move in the right direction, to make course corrections, and to continue striving toward our goals with more clarity and resilience than before. It's about taking the lessons learned from a setback, internalizing them, and using them to fuel future success. In fact, the most successful people, the ones who seem to have it all together, have failed more times than we can count. They have learned to take failure in stride, to analyze what went wrong, and to use that information to pivot, to grow, and to try again. One of the keys to failing forward is the mindset we adopt when we face failure. It's easy to fall into a trap of self-criticism when things don't go as planned. We might start to question our worth, doubting our abilities and our decisions. But failing forward means not allowing failure to define us. It means viewing failure as a moment of learning, not as a reflection of our value. Instead of asking, what did I do wrong, we ask, what can I learn from this? This shift in perspective is incredibly powerful because it allows us to take responsibility for our growth without falling into self-blame or shame. Learning to fail forward also means being willing to take risks. It's about stepping outside of your comfort zone and embracing the discomfort that comes with pursuing something meaningful. If we want to achieve great things, we have to be willing to put ourselves out there, even when we're unsure of the outcome. The truth is, we can't achieve anything new or extraordinary without the possibility of failure. Without risk, there is no reward. And when we take those risks, we open ourselves up to new opportunities, new experiences, and yes, new failures, but also new learnings. Failure can also bring with it a sense of humility. When things don't go our way, it forces us to confront our limitations and shortcomings. But rather than seeing this as a weakness, it's important to recognize it as a strength. Humility is what allows us to stay grounded, to ask for help when we need it, and to remain open to new perspectives. Failing forward means being humble enough to admit when something isn't working, to let go of our egos, and to make the necessary adjustments to move forward with more wisdom. It's also important to recognize that failure is rarely as permanent as we fear it is. We often overestimate the consequences of failure and imagine that it will derail everything we've worked for. But in reality, most failures are temporary and can be corrected with time, effort, and persistence. Failing forward involves recognizing that a setback today doesn't mean that tomorrow is lost. It simply means that we are closer to finding the right path, the right solution, the right approach. Every failed attempt is a step toward eventual success, as long as we remain committed to learning from it and adjusting our strategy. Another key aspect of failing forward is resilience, the ability to bounce back from failure and keep moving forward. Resilience is not about avoiding failure, but about building the mental and emotional strength to keep going despite it. It's about refusing to let a setback keep you down, knowing that the path to success is rarely linear. Resilience allows us to view failure not as an obstacle, but as a teacher that equips us with the tools we need to continue the journey. The more we practice resilience, the easier it becomes to view failure as a natural part of the process rather than a reason to stop. Moreover, failing forward is essential for innovation and creativity. Every great invention, every groundbreaking idea, and every major breakthrough has come from countless failures. The people who change the world are the ones who are willing to fail, to experiment, and to try again when things don't work out. They understand that failure is not the opposite of success, it is a part of it. If you look at the stories of some of the most successful entrepreneurs, scientists, and artists, you'll find that their journeys are filled with failures that they learned from, grew from, and used as stepping stones to greater success. Failing forward also means finding the courage to try again. It's easy to be discouraged after a failure, to want to give up and walk away. But failing forward requires perseverance. It requires the belief that even if we fall short today, there is still a chance to succeed tomorrow. It requires us to look at failure not as a final verdict, but as a valuable experience that will ultimately propel us forward if we let it. At the end of the day, learning to fail forward is one of the most empowering things we can do. It shifts the narrative around failure from something to be feared and avoided to something to be embraced and used for growth. By reframing failure as a vital part of the learning process, we free ourselves from the paralyzing fear of making mistakes. We take back control of our journeys and create the space for success to happen, not in spite of failure, but because of it. So as you move forward in your life, I encourage you to fail forward, take risks, make mistakes, learn from them, use them as fuel for your growth. Trust that each failure is simply another step on the path to your success. And above all, remember that failure is not a reflection of who you are, it's an invitation to become who you're meant to be. Trust in yourself is the foundation upon which all great achievements are built. It's the silent force that guides us through uncertainty, the quiet belief that we are capable of navigating life's challenges, no matter how daunting they may seem. Yet for many of us, trusting ourselves doesn't come easily. It can feel difficult, even unnatural, especially when the world around us seems to demand perfection, success, and certainty at every turn. We live in a culture that celebrates achievement and holds up having it all together as the ideal, but that often leads us to doubt our own intuition, our own judgment, and our own capacity for resilience. The truth is, trusting yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the internal compass that helps you stay on course when the path ahead is unclear. It's the quiet voice that reminds you that no matter what external pressures or doubts may arise, you have everything you need inside you to make it through. Trusting yourself doesn't mean that you'll always have the right answers, nor does it mean that you'll never make mistakes. It means knowing that in the face of uncertainty, you will find a way forward because you are resourceful, capable, and worthy of success. At its core, trusting yourself is about recognizing your inherent value. It's understanding that you don't need to prove your worth to anyone, not through accomplishments or validation, but simply by being who you are. Self-trust comes from accepting yourself, flaws, mistakes, and all. It comes from understanding that you are worthy of love and respect, not because you are perfect, but because you are human. The world may tell you that you need to be more and more confident, more successful, more polished, but in reality, you are already enough. When you trust in yourself, you stop seeking constant validation from others and start affirming your own value, irrespective of external opinions. However, self-trust doesn't simply come by wishing for it. It's a muscle that must be developed through action. It requires you to face your fears head on, to take risks, and to honor your own feelings, instincts, and intuition. It's about giving yourself permission to follow your own path, even if that path looks different from what others expect or what the world deems as successful. Trusting yourself means making decisions based on your own values, rather than trying to meet the expectations of others. When you trust yourself, you no longer second-guess every choice or seek reassurance from outside sources. You become your own greatest advocate. The journey of learning to trust yourself is deeply personal and often requires overcoming the voices of self-doubt that live within us. These voices can be loud, persistent, and unforgiving. They can tell us we aren't capable, that we're not worthy, that we don't belong. But it is in those moments of doubt that the power of self-trust becomes most critical. Trusting yourself means having the courage to listen to your inner voice, to quiet the noise of fear and judgment, and to take steps forward even when you don't know exactly where you're headed. It's about embracing the discomfort of uncertainty and knowing that you have the inner strength to navigate it. One of the keys to building self-trust is being kind to yourself. So often we treat others with compassion and understanding, yet we hold ourselves to impossible standards. We are quick to criticize our mistakes, to focus on our shortcomings, and to tell ourselves we're not doing enough. But self-trust cannot flourish in an environment of self-criticism. When we trust ourselves, we show ourselves the same grace and understanding that we would show a friend or loved one. We acknowledge our imperfections without allowing them to define us. Instead of berating ourselves for every misstep, we look at them as opportunities to learn and grow. Trusting yourself also means acknowledging your strengths. For many of us, we focus so much on what we perceive as our weaknesses or areas for improvement that we forget to honor what we're good at. It's easy to dismiss our abilities, to brush them off as insignificant or unremarkable, but doing so erodes our self-trust. When you trust yourself, you own your strengths with confidence. You recognize the skills, talents, and resilience that have carried you through difficult times, and you trust that those qualities will continue to support you moving forward. You understand that you don't have to have all the answers right now because you have the capability to figure things out as you go. Another critical aspect of self-trust is resilience. Life will inevitably throw challenges your way, unexpected detours, heartbreak, disappointment, and failure. But trusting yourself means knowing that you can weather the storms. It's understanding that setbacks do not define your worth. It's having the confidence that you can get back up, learn from your experiences, and continue moving forward. Self-trust gives you the strength to persevere in the face of adversity, to rise after you fall, and to keep going even when the road seems long and uncertain. Trusting yourself also requires you to stop seeking perfection. Perfectionism is a barrier to self-trust because it keeps us trapped in a cycle of fear and self-judgment. We become paralyzed by the need to get everything right and afraid to take action until we are certain that we will succeed. But perfection doesn't exist. What exists is progress, learning, and growth. Trusting yourself means embracing the imperfections of the journey, knowing that even when things aren't perfect, you are still moving forward. Finally, trusting yourself means giving yourself permission to make mistakes. Mistakes are not a reflection of your worth, they are simply opportunities to learn and grow. Trusting yourself means knowing that you are not defined by any one failure or misstep. Instead, you are the sum of your experiences, and each experience, good or bad, teaches you something valuable. It is through making mistakes, taking risks, and learning from them that we gain the wisdom and confidence needed to trust ourselves even more deeply. As you embark on your own journey of self-trust, I encourage you to begin small. Start by listening to your inner voice, by making decisions that align with your true values and desires. Practice self-compassion when you make mistakes. Honor your strengths and trust that you have what it takes to face the challenges ahead. Trust in yourself, not because you have all the answers, but because you have the courage, resilience, and wisdom to navigate whatever comes your way. Trusting yourself isn't about always being perfect or always having the right answers. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, you are enough. You are capable, and you are worthy of living a life that is true to who you are. When you trust yourself, you unlock your fullest potential, and there is no limit to what you can achieve. Perfectionism is often presented as a virtue, something that reflects high standards, discipline, and excellence. But the truth is, perfectionism is more often a form of self-sabotage. It is rooted in fear, the fear of making mistakes, of being judged, of not measuring up. Perfectionism is not about setting high standards for yourself, it's about setting impossible ones. It's about focusing so intensely on the idea of getting things just right that we lose sight of the bigger picture. We become paralyzed by the need to avoid failure, and as a result, we avoid taking risks, trying new things, or fully engaging in the process of growth and self-discovery. When we cling to perfection, we place an unrealistic burden on ourselves. We set ourselves up for disappointment, frustration, and burnout because no matter how hard we try, perfection is unattainable. Perfectionism doesn't leave room for mistakes, for growth, or for the natural, inevitable process of trial and error. It stifles creativity and innovation because it discourages us from experimenting and learning from failure. When we insist on doing things perfectly, we cut ourselves off from the very opportunities that help us evolve. Letting go of perfection doesn't mean abandoning standards of excellence or striving to improve. It means acknowledging that perfection is not the goal, progress is. Instead of seeking perfection, we can focus on continuous improvement, on learning from each experience, and on appreciating the journey rather than obsessing over the destination. It's about recognizing that our value does not come from our flawless performance, but from our willingness to try, to grow, and to show up as our authentic selves, imperfections and all. One of the most liberating aspects of letting go of perfection is the freedom it brings. When we stop holding ourselves to an unattainable standard, we free ourselves from the constant pressure and self-criticism that come with perfectionism. We no longer have to fear failure because we understand that failure is not an endpoint, but a stepping stone on the path to growth. When we embrace imperfection, we give ourselves permission to be human, flawed, vulnerable, and beautifully imperfect. This, in turn, allows us to experience life more fully, to take risks, and to engage with others in a more authentic way. Letting go of perfection also allows us to embrace the concept of self-compassion. When we strive for perfection, we often treat ourselves with harshness and judgment. We are our own toughest critics, never satisfied with anything less than perfect. But self-compassion is the antidote to perfectionism. It means treating ourselves with the same kindness, understanding, and forgiveness that we would extend to a friend who is struggling. It means acknowledging that we are worthy of love and acceptance, even when we are imperfect. By letting go of perfection, we can cultivate a relationship with ourselves that is based on self-acceptance rather than self-rejection. In relationships, the pursuit of perfection can also be damaging. When we expect perfection from ourselves or others, we set ourselves up for disappointment. We place unrealistic expectations on our partners, friends, and loved ones, and when they inevitably fall short of those expectations, we feel let down or even resentful. But when we let go of perfection, we can begin to appreciate people for who they truly are, not for who we expect them to be. We allow space for growth, for vulnerability, and for authentic connection. In doing so, we create relationships that are based on mutual respect and understanding rather than on unattainable ideals. Moreover, perfectionism often prevents us from truly enjoying life. We become so focused on doing things right or achieving success that we forget to appreciate the moments along the way. We miss the beauty in the process and the ups and downs, the failures and triumphs. Life is not meant to be lived in a constant state of striving for perfection. It's meant to be lived in the fullness of its messiness, with all its twists and turns, its imperfections and surprises. When we let go of the need for everything to be perfect, we allow ourselves to be present in the moment, to savor the journey, and to find joy in the imperfections that make life rich and meaningful. Letting go of perfection is also a powerful way to cultivate resilience. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how hard we try, we will inevitably face challenges, setbacks, and obstacles. When we cling to perfection, we are less likely to bounce back from these difficulties because we see them as personal failures rather than opportunities for growth. However, when we let go of perfection, we are better equipped to handle adversity. We learn to view challenges as a natural part of life, as chances to learn, adapt, and become stronger. We develop the resilience to face setbacks with grace, knowing that they are not a reflection of our worth, but a part of the process of becoming who we are meant to be. Another important aspect of letting go of perfection is that it allows us to cultivate creativity. Perfectionism stifles creativity because it focuses on outcomes rather than the process. When we are constantly worried about getting everything just right, we become afraid to take risks, to try new things, or to experiment. But creativity thrives when we give ourselves permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to explore new ideas without the fear of judgment. By letting go of perfection, we open the door to innovation, to fresh perspectives, and to the freedom to create without limits. Letting go of perfection is not easy. It requires us to challenge deeply ingrained beliefs about success, failure, and self-worth. It requires us to confront the fears and insecurities that drive our perfectionism and to choose a different path, one that values progress over perfection, growth over static achievement, and authenticity over a curated image. But it is a choice that will set us free. It will allow us to live more fully, to embrace our flaws, and to experience the world with a sense of curiosity and wonder, knowing that perfection is not the goal. The goal is to live to learn, and to grow, and that is a journey that is beautiful and worthwhile exactly as it is. So today I encourage you to let go of perfection. Stop measuring yourself against impossible standards, stop fearing failure, and start embracing your imperfections. Trust that you are enough just as you are. And in doing so, you will unlock the freedom to be your authentic self, to create, to grow, and to experience life with all its rich, messy, beautiful complexity. Uncertainty is an inevitable part of life, yet it's often something we resist with all our might. We crave stability, predictability, and a clear path forward. We want to know what will happen next, to feel in control, and to have a roadmap that guides us from one goal to the next. But life rarely works that way. We are constantly faced with situations where the outcome is unknown, where the path is unclear, and where we must navigate through ambiguity. The truth is, uncertainty is not something to be feared or avoided. Instead, it is an invitation to embrace the unknown, to trust in the process, and to allow ourselves to grow in ways we never imagined. The discomfort of uncertainty can be paralyzing. When we don't know what's coming next, we tend to grip harder on what we can control. We look for answers, for signs, for guarantees that will make us feel safe. But in doing so, we often miss the opportunities that uncertainty brings. We become so fixated on finding certainty that we close ourselves off to the possibilities that exist outside our narrow expectations. Uncertainty in its truest form is a space of potential, a place where creativity, innovation, and growth are born. It's a place where new ideas emerge, where new solutions are discovered, and where we can tap into a deeper level of resilience and resourcefulness. One of the first steps in learning to allow for uncertainty is accepting that it is not something to be controlled or eliminated. We cannot know everything in advance. Life doesn't provide us with all the answers up front, and the pursuit of certainty can often lead us down paths that are stifling and limiting. The more we try to control every aspect of our lives, the less room there is for the unexpected and the spontaneous to enter. By letting go of the need to predict and control every outcome, we create space for the unknown to unfold and guide us in directions we might not have otherwise considered. Allowing for uncertainty also requires us to relinquish the illusion of perfection. We often believe that if we just plan carefully enough, if we just do things right, we can eliminate the risks and uncertainties that come with new endeavors. But perfectionism only feeds the fear of failure and keeps us from stepping into the unknown. When we let go of the need for everything to be perfect, we open ourselves up to the beauty of uncertainty. We accept that mistakes will be made, that things may not go according to plan, but that these experiences are just as valuable as those that go smoothly. It's through uncertainty and imperfection that we learn and grow the most. Another important aspect of allowing for uncertainty is learning to trust ourselves. When we face uncertain situations, it's easy to doubt our abilities, to second-guess our decisions, and to feel overwhelmed by the lack of clear direction. But trust in yourself means knowing that even if you don't have all the answers right now, you have the resilience and wisdom to navigate the unknown. It's about believing that, regardless of how things unfold, you are capable of adapting, of course correcting, and of finding your way. Trusting yourself in times of uncertainty allows you to move forward with confidence, even in the face of ambiguity. Uncertainty can also be a powerful teacher. When we don't have all the answers, we are forced to engage more deeply with the world around us. We become more present, more observant, and more open to the lessons that each moment offers. Uncertainty calls us to let go of our need for control and to embrace the mystery of life. It reminds us that not everything can be planned or predicted, and that's okay. Some of the most meaningful experiences come from moments that were unexpected, unscripted, and unplanned. It is in these moments that we truly learn what we are capable of as we navigate the unknown with a sense of curiosity and openness. Allowing for uncertainty also means releasing the need for guarantees. We often seek guarantees in our careers, our relationships, and our personal goals, believing that if we have a clear roadmap, we can avoid failure or disappointment. But life doesn't offer us guarantees. Instead, it offers us opportunities for growth, connection, and transformation, none of which come with assurances. By releasing our attachment to guarantees, we free ourselves to take risks, to embrace change, and to see the potential in situations that may seem uncertain at first. We open ourselves up to the adventure of life, knowing that the lack of certainty does not equate to a lack of possibility. Living with uncertainty also requires us to practice patience. When we are in a state of uncertainty, it's easy to become frustrated or anxious, to want answers right away, and to try to force a sense of clarity. But often the answers come only with time. By allowing for uncertainty, we give ourselves the space to let things unfold organically without rushing the process or demanding immediate results. Patience teaches us to trust the timing of life, to surrender to the ebb and flow of events, and to believe that the right opportunities will reveal themselves when the time is right. It's important to recognize that uncertainty is not the same as failure. Many of us associate uncertainty with the possibility of failure, and as a result, we shy away from it. But uncertainty is not an indicator of failure, it's simply a part of the process of growth and change. In fact, it's often when we step into uncertainty that we find our greatest successes. Success does not come from knowing every step of the journey in advance, but from having the courage to begin without knowing exactly where we are headed. When we embrace uncertainty, we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to take risks, and to experience life fully, without being paralyzed by the fear of what might go wrong. Uncertainty is a space where dreams are made, it's where innovation happens, where breakthroughs are realized, and where we are forced to stretch beyond our comfort zones. When we allow for uncertainty, we become more creative, more resourceful, and more open to possibilities that we might not have imagined. It's a space where we can reimagine our lives, our work, and our relationships not as they should be, but as they could be. It's a place where we learn to embrace change and to trust in the journey, even when the destination is unclear. At its core, allowing for uncertainty is about accepting the inherent unpredictability of life. It's about understanding that the only constant is change, and that in order to thrive, we must learn to adapt to it. We don't need to have everything figured out in advance. We don't need to know exactly how things will turn out. What we need is the courage to move forward, even in the face of the unknown, with an open mind and a trusting heart. By allowing for uncertainty, we step into the flow of life, where the magic happens, where we find growth, creativity, and a deeper connection to ourselves and the world around us. Taking the leap is one of the most transformative acts we can make in our lives. It's the moment when we choose to step out of the comfort zone that has kept us safe, predictable, and in control, and instead we venture into the unknown. It's the moment when we silence the voices of doubt and fear, when we take a deep breath and trust that, despite the uncertainty that lies ahead, we have the strength to navigate whatever comes our way. It's about choosing courage over comfort, action over inaction, and faith over fear. We often stand on the edge of a big decision, weighing the potential outcomes, thinking through every possible scenario, and allowing our fears to cloud our judgment. The desire for security, for knowing what will happen next, can paralyze us, preventing us from moving forward. We want guarantees. We want a roadmap that tells us exactly where we are going and how we will get there. But the reality is, life doesn't offer such assurances. The leap is not about knowing exactly how things will unfold. It's about trusting yourself in the process enough to take the first step, even when you don't have all the answers. The leap is about embracing the unknown and trusting that it will guide you to where you need to be. When you take the leap, you are choosing to take a risk, and risk inherently involves uncertainty. There is no way to be 100% sure of the outcome, but there is power in moving forward despite that. The truth is, we can never predict the future, no matter how much we try to plan or prepare. The beauty of taking the leap is that it allows for growth and discovery. It is through those moments of uncertainty, those moments of vulnerability, that we learn the most about ourselves and our capacity to handle what comes next. Every leap we take, whether it results in success or failure, adds to our resilience, our strength, and our understanding of what we are truly capable of. Taking the leap also requires us to shift our mindset around failure. We often avoid taking risks because we fear failing, but what if we viewed failure not as something to avoid, but as an inevitable and necessary part of the journey? Failure, in its truest form, is not a reflection of our worth or abilities. It is simply a stepping stone, a lesson that we can learn from. When we take the leap, we are giving ourselves permission to fail, and in doing so, we give ourselves the freedom to grow, to experiment, and to innovate. Without failure, we would never know what works or what doesn't. We would never push the boundaries of our potential. So by taking that leap, we open ourselves to the possibility of both success and learning from our setbacks. The leap also requires us to confront the inner critic, the voice that tells us we're not good enough, that we're not ready, that we should wait until everything is perfect. This voice is often rooted in fear and a desire to protect us from failure or rejection. But if we listen to it too closely, we will never move forward. Taking the leap means challenging the voice of doubt and choosing to trust in our own abilities and instincts. It means acknowledging the fear but not letting it control us. We are not defined by our fears, we are defined by how we respond to them. And taking the leap is one of the most powerful ways to show ourselves that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. One of the most profound aspects of taking the leap is the way it forces us to grow. When we stay in our comfort zone, we are limited by what we already know, by the habits and patterns that have shaped our past. But when we take the leap, we step into new territory. We stretch our limits, we face new challenges that demand new skills, new mindsets, and new ways of being. Taking the leap forces us to evolve. It pushes us to become the version of ourselves we have always been capable of becoming, but we're too afraid to embrace. Through the leap, we expand our boundaries and create new possibilities for ourselves. Taking the leap is also about trusting the timing of life. It's easy to think that the right time will magically appear, that we will somehow know when we are ready, but the truth is, there is no perfect moment. There is no magical day when everything aligns and we suddenly feel completely prepared. The right time to take the leap is now. It's about realizing that waiting for the perfect moment is a form of procrastination, an excuse to avoid facing our fears. Life doesn't wait for us to feel ready. It moves forward, and if we don't take the leap now, we might miss out on opportunities we never imagined. The timing will never be perfect, but that doesn't mean it's not the right time. Your story is unfolding with each step you take, and the only way to truly experience it is by daring to leap into the unknown, knowing that in the leap, you are already becoming more than you ever imagined. Taking the leap also requires us to shift our mindset around failure. We often avoid taking risks because we fear failing. But what if we viewed failure not as something to avoid, but as an inevitable and necessary part of the journey? Failure, in its truest form, is not a reflection of our worth or abilities. It is simply a stepping stone, a lesson that we can learn from. When we take the leap, we are giving ourselves permission to fail, and in doing so, we give ourselves the freedom to grow, to experiment, and to innovate. Without failure, we would never know what works or what doesn't. We would never push the boundaries of our potential. So by taking that leap, we open ourselves to the possibility of both success and learning from our setbacks. The leap also requires us to confront the inner critic, the voice that tells us we're not good enough, that we're not ready, that we should wait until everything is perfect. This voice is often rooted in fear and a desire to protect us from failure or rejection. But if we listen to it too closely, we will never move forward. Taking the leap means challenging the voice of doubt and choosing to trust in our own abilities and instincts. It means acknowledging the fear but not letting it control us. We are not defined by our fears, we are defined by how we respond to them. And taking the leap is one of the most powerful ways to show ourselves that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. One of the most profound aspects of taking the leap is the way it forces us to grow. When we stay in our comfort zone, we are limited by what we already know, by the habits and patterns that have shaped our past. But when we take the leap, we step into new territory. We stretch our limits, we face new challenges that demand new skills, new mindsets, and new ways of being. Taking the leap forces us to evolve. It pushes us to become the version of ourselves we have always been capable of becoming, but we're too afraid to embrace. Through the leap, we expand our boundaries and create new possibilities for ourselves. Taking the leap is also about trusting the timing of life. It's easy to think that the right time will magically appear, that we will somehow know when we are ready, but the truth is, there is no perfect moment. There is no magical day when everything aligns and we suddenly feel completely prepared. The right time to take the leap is now. It's about realizing that waiting for the perfect moment is a form of procrastination, an excuse to avoid facing our fears. Life doesn't wait for us to feel ready. It moves forward, and if we don't take the leap now, we might miss out on opportunities we never imagined. The timing will never be perfect, but that doesn't mean it's not the right time. Moreover, taking the leap often means going against the grain, choosing a path that may not align with others' expectations. It's about honoring your own dreams and desires, even if they don't make sense to those around you. It's about having the courage to follow your own truth, even when it's not popular or conventional. It's about trusting that your unique path will lead you to exactly where you are meant to be, and that the journey is just as important as the destination. When you take the leap, you give yourself permission to create your own narrative and to step into a life that is uniquely yours. The leap, in its essence, is about moving forward despite fear, doubt, and uncertainty. It's about trusting the unknown, trusting yourself, and trusting the process. It's about embracing the discomfort that comes with growth and stepping into the future with an open heart and an open mind. While the leap may feel risky, it is the very thing that propels us toward our greatest potential. It is through the leap that we break free from self-imposed limitations and discover the depths of our courage, creativity, and resilience. Taking the leap is not just a one-time act, it is a mindset, a way of approaching life that embraces change, challenges, and growth. It is the willingness to step forward, not knowing exactly where you will land, but trusting that the leap will carry you exactly where you need to go. The journey we've explored today is not about achieving perfection, avoiding failure, or controlling every step we take. It's about embracing the uncertainty of life, trusting in our ability to navigate the unknown, and having the courage to take that leap into the unfamiliar. Life is full of moments where we are faced with decisions that feel daunting, where we're unsure of what lies ahead. But it's in those moments that true growth happens. By allowing ourselves to take chances, to fail, to embrace vulnerability, and to let go of perfection, we open the door to a life rich with possibility and transformation. Taking the leap is not just about the outcomes, it's about the process, the lessons, and the opportunities for personal growth that come from stepping into the unknown. Every leap we take, no matter how small, brings us closer to understanding our true potential and the power that lies within us. So as you move forward, remember it's not about having all the answers or controlling the outcome. It's about trusting yourself enough to take the leap, to let go of the need for certainty, and to embrace the messiness and beauty of the journey. Your story is unfolding with each step you take, and the only way to truly experience it is by daring to leap into the unknown, knowing that in the leap, you are already becoming more than you ever imagined.